Hi there and welcome to the very first episode of 70 Years of Rock Guitar. In this series we'll dive into the most iconic riffs, licks and solos from over 70 years of rock history. I'll show you how to learn the key stylistic elements of each decade and how to use them to create your very own modern rock songs. As with most of my other videos, you can download a free PDF from the link in the video description or the first pinned comment. It's designed to help you get the most out of this lesson and really boost your guitar progress. Today in this video we'll go back to the 1950s, to the very beginning of rock and roll, starting with some of the most important elements of rhythm guitar from that era. And if you're looking for the right sound for these examples, some of the most common amps of the time were Fender Tweed amps like the Deluxe, the Bassman or the Champ, Gibson GA series amps, and occasionally amps by Danelectro, Velco or Supro. The typical guitars were mostly hollow body guitars by either Gibson, Gretsch or Rickenbacker, but also the Fender Telecaster, first released in 1951, the Gibson Les Paul, released in 1952, and from 1954 onwards, the Fender Stratocaster. Effects, as we know them today in pedal format, were practically non-existent. The most common effects for true vintage 50s sound were spring reverb, mostly built into Fender amps of the time, tape echo and slapback delay. I've recreated a few of these amps and effects using my Kemper. If you're using a modeler at home like the Kemper, Line 6 Helix, XFX, Bus GX100 or GT1000, you should easily be able to find similar amp and effects profiles. Okay, before we jump into some practical examples, let's take a look at where rock and roll originally came from. Understanding the roots of rock and roll will help you make sense of a lot of the riffs we're about to play and make it much easier to learn them and integrate them into your own playing style. Rock and roll evolved in the late 1940s and early 50s, mainly out of blues styles such as rhythm and blues, boogie woogie and jump blues. And that's also where we find the origins of most early rock chord progressions. Almost every early rock and roll song was based on the classic blues formula, using the 1-4-5 chord progression. If you're not too familiar with that yet, the first, fourth and fifth degrees of a major or a minor scale are used to form the same chords. For example, in C major. C major being the 1 chord or the tonic of the scale, F major being the 4 chord or the subdominant, while G major is the 5 chord, also known as the dominant. And the same also goes for minor scales like the A minor scale, for example. A minor being the tonic, the 1 chord, while D minor is the 4 chord, the subdominant, and E minor is the dominant, the 5 chord. These 3 chords, the 1, 4 and 5, work so well together because they follow a harmonic logic, and that's why they also sound quote-unquote right. Let's now take a look at a basic 12-bar blues in major using the most classic of all blues riffs. This is a great way to understand how so many early rock and roll riffs were structured. So we're in A here and we play the tonic riff like this. For our 4 chord, the subdominant will play the same riff in D. And for our dominant chord, which is E, we'll play the same riff here with an E5 power chord, also adding a 6th. So here's the entire 12-bar blues. once you got the hang of this, try speeding it up a little. It's always wise and best to use a metronome for this, but for this video I'll just play it for you in a free tempo. So what you want to do is speeding things up to these tempos here, while also using alternate strumming. And for our first example of a real 50s rock and roll song, let's take a look at Chuck Berry's Johnny B. Goode from 1958. The rhythm guitar plays a slightly altered 12-bar blues progression in A sharp major. The only real change from our early example is that bar 10 stays on the dominant chord, F, instead of moving to the subdominant. Here's the same example played a little slower. Our next example is the song Good Golly Miss Molly by Little Richard from the same year, 1958. And here we return to the full 12-bar blues structure. The riff is a variation of another classic blues riff that's just as widely used. This song is in G, so for our tonic we'll play this riff. For our subdominant over C we'll play this riff. And for our dominant chord, we'll play this riff in D. And here's the entire thing. And a little slower. With just these two riff types, you'll be able to play a lot of songs from that era. Here's a list of classic 50s rock hits you can try out using this approach. They won't all be identical, but once you've internalized the riffs from this lesson, these songs will come much easier. So how do you incorporate these riffs into modern rock songs or your own style? Let me give you two quick examples before I improvise a third one for you. Our first example is the song Just 16 by Velvet Revolver from 2007. Here Slash used a variation of the classic rock riff for the verses. And in my old band Cunning Mantrap's song Red, which was the lead single off of our first album Hazmat, I've also used a variation of this classic rock riff, this time in E. And now here's the third riff I'll improvise live, just to show you how flexible these old style riffs really are. And to make things even more modern, I'll use the drop D tuning for you. The key is always what you build around an idea like this. Try it yourself. Even after 70 years, some cliches still spark new inspiration. Okay, so let's wrap up your video with another 1950s classic, the 50s progression. This is a ballad style chord sequence with a 1-6-4-5 chord progression. So in C, that would be C major, A minor, F major, and G major. If you know your open and bar chords very well and also know how to pick them, playing songs in this style won't be a problem for you. Most of them are in 6/8 time, just like our example, Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers, also from the year 1955. This is the main chord progression and picking pattern. And a little faster. Or this song, Earth Angel by the band The Penguins from 1954, later brought back into pop culture in Back to the Future. There are also many modern examples that still use the same structure. I think they call this Love by Elliot James Ray from 2024, which even keeps the 6/8 rhythm. Or Me by Taylor Swift from 2019, which uses the same progression in a more modern pop sound. That's it for today's video. In the next part, we'll take a closer look at lead sounds and solos from the 1950s. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and also let me know in the comments which songs from other decades you'd like me to talk about in future videos. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss a thing, and then I'll see you in the next part.